a learning would be write down all the things as a business owner that you are really good at or you love to do. Those are the things that you protect and you keep doing. I love to write. I love to speak. I love to host events. Those things I will keep and I will continue to do until somebody tells me I'm not good enough to do those jobs.
This is Lead with Culture. I'm Kate Volman, and on this episode, I was joined by my friend Joe Pulizzi, who is an author, podcaster, marketing speaker, and entrepreneur. He is the founder of multiple startups, including content creator education website The Tilt, Content Entrepreneur Expo, and is the best-selling author of 7 books, including Content Inc. and Epic Content Marketing. He is best known for his work in content marketing. In fact, he actually started one of the companies that he started. He successfully exited in 2016. And in addition to writing a lot of nonfiction books, he also wrote a mystery novel. So we talk a little bit about that, but we talk a lot about building a business, company culture. We talk about writing books. We talk about his entrepreneurial journey in general. And we also talked a little bit about his new book that just came out and his new event that he started a couple years ago to help people become content entrepreneurs. There's a lot to unpack in this episode, and I hope you enjoy it. Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so excited to see you.
Kate, I know we've been trying to do this for so long, so thank you for being patient with me, and we made it happen. So excited to talk to you.
We made it happen. That's all that matters. And we have known each other for quite a few years now. And I have had the privilege of watching you just grow so much over the years. And you've done so many things. You're one of the people that I feel blessed to know because you have such an interesting body of work. You've done so many things. You've had your hands in so many different projects. And you're so uplifting and positive around helping other people create their body of work, which I just love about you. So thank you for the work that you do and what you put out into the world.
Well, you need to do my intros for me all the time. That is the sweetest thing that anyone's ever said to me. So thank you. The last thing you said was probably the most critical for me is when I was coming up, not knowing anything, started in the little custom media division. There were quite a few people that took me under their wing and said, Joe, I know that you've got some potential here, and showed me the ropes and taught me content marketing and taught me how to deal with customers and how to manage. And if it wasn't for them, none of that would have happened. I don't know what I would be, but I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. So I do believe in the pay it forward. I too, even when people contact me out of the blue, I try to at least point them in the right direction and spend some time with it because I know other people have done that for me as well. And that's kind of the only way to go.
Yeah, pay it forward. I love it. Well, let's talk a little bit about what you have done with your career, because there are people that are listening. They're running a business, they're growing, and they're trying to scale a business. You've done that multiple times. You even exited one of your companies. So talk a little bit about what was the first company that you started and how did your idea come about?
I grew up in business-to-business publishing and was lucky to be in this custom media division of a large traditional publisher, but always wanted to start my own business since I was a young kid. I mean, I came from, my parents owned a restaurant. My uncle and my grandfather ran a funeral home. I was around both of those entrepreneurial businesses, and I thought that's the way that it was. I didn't know you had to, you work for other people. And then I graduated from college and I'm like, I need money. I have to go get a job somewhere. I just start something. And I didn't know what to start, didn't know anything about really starting your own business, and fell into this publishing thing. And so it's about 2005 when I really said, I think there's something here to what ultimately became content marketing. I decided to, for financial reasons, and saved up some money, stayed another year, left in March of 2007. And the next day, April 2nd, 2007, launched a blog that was called The Content Marketing Revolution, or The Content Revolution. And that was the start of the business. So I had 6-year-old and 4-year-old at home. We didn't have more than 2 nickels to rub together, but I really believed in this idea. And the first idea was there's like an eHarmony for content marketing. I wanted to match up brands who needed content marketing services with agencies and journalists who provided those content services. I thought, Kate, I thought this was the greatest idea ever. I said, can't miss, except for the fact that nobody knew what content marketing was and very few people were spending money on it. So as we were building this audience around the blog, which actually worked really well, people were coming in. I was blogging about how-to and strategic ways to leverage content marketing, but all those people that came in, they weren't ready to spend. So it ultimately didn't work. So fast forward to the end of 2009, I'm ready to go find a job. I'm like, okay, this didn't work. The whole idea of matching these companies up, we did have people in the system, just not enough revenue to do it. The financial model was terrible. And I was dusting off the LinkedIn profile, if you will, and I had to sit down with my wife, who's my business partner, still is my business partner. And I said, okay, I think I gave it a good shot. We did the business for 2.5 years. It's not working. And she said, if you give up on this now, you will regret it the rest of your life. Like, you were born to be an entrepreneur. Don't give up that easily. I said, it's been 2.5 years. We're bleeding cash. We've got nothing coming in. I got to get revenue in some way. She said, let's give it another 6 months. Goodness, we were so blessed that happened because I went back to the drawing board, felt sorry for myself for a while. Then I started looking at all the feedback from my blog and email subscribers. So I had lucky enough, I had about 10,000 subscribers at that time. So that's like a gold mine of value there, but really wasn't using it. But I started to look at the emails that were sending me and the blog comments. And it was, Joe, are there any content marketing events that I can send my staff to? Joe, is there any ongoing training that I can send my team to? So I realized we were doing the right things, educating around this practice of content marketing, but we were launching the wrong product. And thankfully, I'm like, okay. So that's when I think I was drinking at the time because I had a cocktail napkin in front of me. And I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to rename this thing Content Marketing Institute. We are going to have the leading online destination for content marketing, contentmarketinginstitute.com. Number 2, we're going to have the go-to #1 print magazine in the industry for content marketing. We'll send it to leaders. That became chief content officer. And then we're going to have ultimately this big event where all these people can come, the industry event where the industry leaders can come together. We can learn and network. That became Content Marketing World. So launched May 4th, something like that, of 2010, unveiled Content Marketing Institute. And Kate, it took off right away. I was like, oh my God, everybody came in. We were getting money coming in for advertising and sponsorship. And we're able to then announce that we were going to do an event. And so that event was going to be September of 2011. I was just hoping, I said, could we get 100 or 150 people to come to Cleveland, Ohio for this big event? Is it even possible to do? And we ended up getting 660 people to come to that first year event, which ultimately 4 years later became 4,000 people, the largest business event in Cleveland, Ohio. And all that craziness, Kate, and the learning is have a really supportive spouse and business partner, understand what you're really good at. But I think I set my expectations that success was going to come sooner. Pivots need to happen. They always happen. I should have known that, it takes 5 years to really build a business. And I think I was like, oh, this is a great idea. It's going to work. Well, maybe not, but generally it doesn't work that way. You have to build in the patience. Luckily, we cut back on expenses, didn't take the vacations that we wanted to, did some things we had to do so the expenses were low enough that we could get through the lean times, supportive wife, and here we are. So that became Content Marketing Institute, which you mentioned we exited from. That was always the plan. We exited in 2016, had a very successful exit, made all our dreams come true. And I was able to ongoing do all the things that I'm doing right now. And it's very exciting.
Oh my gosh, Joe, there's so much about that story that you could unpack. It could be like all these different shows for each of these components. The first is, I love the fact that your wife said just 6 more months. Just 6 more months like that. This is why people say the biggest decision we make in our lives is the person we choose to spend it with.
Right.
And how true. But first, I love that she pushed you to think about 6 more months. And then when you said you were launching the wrong product, I feel like that is going to hit a lot of people because it's almost like when some business owners, we feel like we need to just work harder. We know we have a good product. We're kind of so attached to the product that we're selling because, like you, this is a great idea. I know it's going to work.
Mhm.
And instead of thinking, well, how can I make those shifts? And I love that you looked and you saw, okay, what is the data that I have to go off of? I have this 10,000 people, which, and back then, people weren't doing this. Like we're talking about it now, and everyone has an email list. Obviously, back then, it wasn't, you were well before your time, right? Like this idea was before content marketing was a topic of conversation that was being had in all these organizations. And so I love that you kind of figured that out. But I'm curious what your thought process was when you thought, okay, I have to make a shift in the product a little bit. And then your thoughts on having the confidence
Yeah.
to make that decision.
When I looked at the data, I guess you made a comment like, launching the wrong product. I fell in love with the idea of this product and I had it in my head for years. It was initially called custompublishers.com, renamed it Jump to 42. Name doesn't matter. Terrible name. But I fell in love with that and I stopped looking at any data or feedback because I'm like, this is the product. Because there were a couple other products out there in the agency field. I said, it's already happening in these other industries. It happens in dating. It's happened. This needs to happen. It's very hard to find good help. Wonderful. So that's when I learned, don't focus on what you think is the best product. Just listen to your customers and open your eyes. That's why I came out with a book in 2015 called Content Inc. And the whole idea behind that book is build an audience first and then see what they want to buy and then sell that. And it's so easy. It's yes, of course, that makes perfect sense. You build an audience, you build a relationship with a bunch of people that know and trust you, and then you figure out what their pain points are and what they really need to fill those gaps in their business, and you sell that. It's like, why didn't I just do that? And it's so now now it's easier. Now I can go talk to people and they're in the same position that I'm in. And they're just, banging their head against the wall trying to sell this thing and saying nobody will buy it. I said, well, maybe that's not what they want to buy. You have already built this audience. So let's do some surveys. We call them listening posts. Let's set up some listening posts. Does that mean you're going to listen on Twitter X or Threads or do surveys to them or maybe direct feedback? Or that's why I love going to live events. You talk to them face to face, you get into these honest conversations with people and you start to figure out, oh, this isn't the product over here. There's a lot of people that I'm talking to recently that are really struggling with their consulting businesses that are very broad and or fractional officer or other things. And they're like, well, you're offering this, but it sounds like in conversations, they're asking for this. Maybe you should just do that. Maybe you should do what they want to pay you money for. And, maybe put your pride to the side a second and say, okay, maybe that wasn't the best idea. I mean, the great thing about when you launch so many ideas and fail, you sort of are okay with it. Like I failed so many times at this point, Kate. I'm fine with it. I'm like, okay, I failed that. That was a bad idea. That's another bad idea. I do a lot of things, but I mean, all the way more failures, but I'm like, okay, I'll take this thing out of this failure. I'm going to put it over here and start this thing over here. And that'll work really well. It's funny with Robert Rose and I wrote Managing Content Marketing in 2011. Solid book. Not perfect, not perfectly placed, not exactly what was needed. 6 years later, we launched Killing Marketing right on the spot. Hit exactly what was needed. Thinking about your marketing department as a profit center. We started with going that, and then we had to get to that. So was Managing Content Marketing a failure? I don't know. You could say yes or no, doesn't matter. But that book, that failure or that unperformance of a product got us to something that worked really well. So I guess, if anybody's listening to this, it's just don't fall in love with your babies. It's okay. This is business, and just be open and honest with yourself that at any point you can pivot. And that's why I love the idea of, if you have your own audience, it's okay. They'll be happy to go on the journey with you.
Yeah.
Be transparent with them. Tell them what you're struggling with. They will come to your aid. They got a lot of people that are super fans of yours that will be happy to try new beta-ish products that you're trying to launch or a new consulting service or whatever it is, and rely on them. And they want to be part of it. They want to support you. They want to see that you're successful.
Yeah. That's so true. I mean, I know that being part of the community when I would go to Content Marketing World, it was a blast. I always met the kindest people who really wanted to support each other. And it was a really wonderful community. So I love how you're kind of sharing people want to be part of the journey, but that doesn't just happen. Just like culture doesn't just happen. You created that kind of culture which obviously you're building a business and you're bringing in people to support you. So, how do you, Joe, think about culture? Because culture is being created at a company when people are obviously growing, but you not only are growing a business, but you're also inviting people into your culture in this really phenomenal community of content marketers.
I understood with the help of my wife and business partner what I'm really good at and what I'm not. I love being the host. I love getting in front of people. I love putting two people together so that they can help each other. I love to speak. I love to write. I love to do those things. And I love big strategy. I'm terrible at tactics. I'm terrible at keeping appointments, like figuring out where they go and how I make it on time. I'm not a good time scheduler. So the first thing is, as a like setting a good culture, is figuring out what you're really good at and what you like, and then figuring out what you're not good at and what you don't like, and get somebody else to do that, like that job. And that was the key, I think, one of the key things to the entire structure of Content Marketing Institute. We had 28 people, some part-time, some contracted full-time, and they all knew, like, this is what Joe does. And Joe will not get into your bit. Like, I want to give somebody clear directions and here's what my expectations are, and just get the heck out of the way and let them do their job and not go and pick at it, whatever. And I'm not good at those things, but I will share ongoing what the strategy is. And so, like, my whole thing was regular meetings or updates. Like, I wanted to send an update at least every 2 weeks and say, here's how the business is going to everyone. Here's how we're doing. Here's where we're struggling. Here's where we're not. So that everyone knew, okay, this is where I need to go. This is what we all felt a part of the team. I remember Michelle Lynn, who was our wonderful editorial director for CMI, my wife, she saw Michelle was tweeting some interesting things on Twitter. I looked Michelle's eyes, like, oh, this is good. I went to Michelle's website. Oh, I think this is really good. I sort of did that. Reached out to Michelle, said, Michelle, would you like a job with us? First thing. Didn't like I said, I know, I've done enough research. I know. She's like, oh, what? Who are you? What are you done? And I shared the vision. I'm like, look, you don't know me from anybody, but this is how I talk to be. Like, I'm very excited about this concept. I think Content Marketing Institute is going to be a thing. I think that we're in for a run. It's the most exciting part of marketing. And I love what you do. Would you go ahead and take this role for me? Because I can't lead the edit. I can't do the editorial strategy. I'm not good at that. I'm not good at deadlines and coordinating with other writers and figuring all that out. And thankfully, we had quite a few phone conversations, and she went ahead and said yes. And I said, great, this is yours. Whenever you need help or you need somebody to get out of your way so that you can do your job, please let me know. Otherwise, it's yours. Take it and run with it. And we did that with our design and J.K. Kalinowski, and we on and on and on with marketing and Kathy McPhillips. I just trusted them. They were professionals, and that made it just a wonderful working relationship. We had a nice community, and that vibe between our team, I think, fed out into the community because we were having a hell of a good time. I mean, if you're just talking about business performance, this is not like a $1 billion company or something, but we were, losing money up until 2010. In 2011, we hit $1 million in revenue for the first time, and then we were a $10 million business in 2015. So pretty good, solid growth for a small business.
Yeah.
And we were going on vacations together, and we were doing and I think that everyone in the community could feel that, not only that they needed this education as part of their future in the marketing business, but I think we all wanted to be around each other, and we fed off the excitement of, this is something special. Let's take that to the next level. I mean, I have hundreds of people that I would consider friends from the content marketing industry that we just happen to bump it around and help each other. And that was the other thing, like whether or not, as you've been around doing speaking and writing and going to these things, this community really enjoys helping each other. And I searched that out. Like, my first thing is, if, you and I run into each other at an event, we're going to talk. I want to say, how can I help you? Is there something I can do with the few resources I have? Is there an introduction you need? Do you want me to look at a manuscript? What do you need? And that was the entire team and the entire community. And it's still coming back. I got an email yesterday from somebody saying, hey, I see you're doing the New Till Publishing thing. What can I do to help you? They didn't have to send that. That's somebody I met 12 years ago. But they saw that. And I think that community, whether it gets together at Content Marketing World or it's just out there, it continues to feed on itself. So if that's something that started with me, I probably started more with my wife, because I think we just trusted people that they would do their job. And we were only there to remove obstacles. And the other thing is, work whenever you want. Just let us know. Like, if you need a couple days off, take a couple days off. Just let us know. You like, put your out office on, whatever. You need a week off? Great. Take a week off. Okay. You don't have to work. You can work 10. You get your job done. It takes 10 hours, 40 hours. I don't care. Whatever you need to do. Like, we have a sales team. It's like, hey, you hit your sales goals for the month. Go ahead, take a week off. Go enjoy yourself. Whatever. They never did. They always worked.
Oh my God.
But I think it's setting that expectation and that trust.
Yeah.
That was the key thing.
That's exactly right. I feel like when you hire good people that love what they do, they're self-motivated. They love it so much and they like being part of it. And when they really do need the time, they're going to take it. But we're the crazy people that don't want to take the time because it's so much fun. When you were really having fun doing your work, then you don't feel like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for the weekend, or I have to take this vacation. And that is what you were able to build. And yeah, Joe, it started with you because you were in my eyes, you were content marketing world. It was like, I learned about you, and then all of the people that were always on the stages, like Ann Handley and Jay Bear, and kind of built, and I just saw the friendship that you guys had. And I thought it was so remarkable what you were creating. And it just kind of oozed into the community, which is why it grew. I am not surprised that it grew so quickly. And when you did hit 1 million, I still remember when I got to see you on the last event that you went before you exited. And I thought, oh no, what are we going to do without Joe? But hey, it lives on. And so you decided to take a little bit of time off and travel the world. And you also, so you've written 7 books. And one of them, when you exited the company, was a novel. So you went from writing about content marketing to a mystery novel. What was that?
We sold in middle of 2016. I stayed on with Content Marketing Institute till 2017. By the way, they have done a great job without me. It's wonderful to see it continue to flourish and succeed. So great. Joe was not completely necessary in continuing that. So great. I'm happy for that.
But I have to say, that is the signs of a true leader, that when you build the company and then you leave and it remains that culture and they continue to grow, there's something to be said about that, which is remarkable.
Well, thank you. But it was strategic, because the goal, when I launched the business in 2007, I ended up writing down a goal in 2008, and it said, I sold my business in 2015 for $15 million. And I read that goal every day.
Wow.
I wrote it down, read it every day, which is completely audacious and silly, because we were getting no revenue at the time, and this was a pipe dream, but I kept reviewing that. And then, so about 2013, 2014, I'm reviewing that, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna have trouble selling this company at some point, because they think it's the Joe show. It's always Joe. Joe's writing, Joe's authoring the research. It's like, this is not going to work. So that's when we made some real strategic decisions and said, okay, Joe is not authoring the research anymore. That's Lisa Merton Beats. Done. Not doing that anymore. Joe is not going to host everything. We're going to insert special hosts, and that's going to be Robert Rose and some other people. So we start to get the team out in front. And by 2015, we did it, I think, very, very well, where you can completely remove Joe out of the entire thing and nobody would notice. That was wonderful. Whatever I can do to help, I continue to speak and host and do those things, and I'll be as a figurehead, but I'm not necessary. Anyway, so that worked really well. It was a strategic plan. And then at the end of 2017, I'm getting ready to leave, and everybody's asking me, of course, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do next, Joe? What's the next thing? And it was very overwhelming. It caused a lot of anxiety, because I'm like, what am I going to do next? That was a pretty good act. Pretty good point in my life. It's, we're talking about the story now. Felt really good about it, but like, okay, lots of pressure. So I talked to my wife about it, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And she said, just tell them you're going to do nothing. Like, I can't tell them I'm going to do nothing. Like, this doesn't make any sense. She said, tell them you're going to do nothing. Tell them you've had this great success and you're so happy, and it's going to be in really good hands, and you're going to just take some time off and reset. Just think about, where Joe can make an impact next. I said, wow, that's pretty good. So I started doing research on sabbaticals, and I started to research, like, oh my God, there's people that do 1 month and 6 month and 1 year sabbaticals where they take a year off and do something incredible or do nothing or whatever. And so I decided in like November of 17 that I was going to take a 1-year sabbatical. So on January 1st, the first month, I did no electronics January. I cleansed myself of all the social media and all email, which was crazy. I was an addict and I was on social all the time, checking it all the time. So I did. First 2 weeks were very itchy, but then I got to a point, okay, good. Cleansed in January. And then I started to do a lot of travel. I went to Sicily with my dad in February. So all the things that I wanted to do, did all of them, spent tons of time with my kids. It was fantastic. Then I'm like, okay, for whatever reason, I started to talk to my wife about the books that she reads. She loves mysteries and thrillers. I was like, oh, okay, I wonder, like I've written a lot of books up to that point, but she never read it. Like she would only read the acknowledgments because she wanted to see what I said about her, if I said anything, but she never read the book. She said, marketing is boring. Nobody wants to read this stuff.
Oh my
And
God.
so she never read any. And I said, wouldn't it be wonderful if I wrote something that my wife and family members could read? Because nobody knew, still to this day, Kate, nobody knows what I do. Like when you say Joe's in content marketing, they don't know what that is. It's just like some made up thing. So I'm like, okay, I am going to write mystery thriller. And I started thinking about it at the end of 18, but didn't really start writing on it until I ended my sabbatical in 2019. Went through a lot of fits and starts and learned so much. The most difficult creative work I've ever done was writing that novel. And it came out, I launched it in audio at the end of 2019. Basically, I launched all the chapters as a podcast because I wanted to see what that would do. And it was wonderful. And then launched it in print. We had the launch party, March 8th of 2020.
Oh, geez.
It was the last time I saw any of my friends. It was so crazy how that happened. Anyways, that's a whole nother story. But I wanted to do something that would use a completely different part of my brain. And I wanted to know if I could actually do it and have it be something that people would enjoy. Like, how could I affect people in a positive way in doing this thing? And it worked out. And I'm still going to, I took a little time off of writing, but I'm getting back into it probably in the next month or so and start on that.
Oh, wow. What's your next book
That's my next
about?
thing. So the current, I just launched The Content Entrepreneur, which is over here if you're looking. So that book just came out. It's with 32 of my friends that we met at CEX, the event. And it's a wonderful book on how to move from a content creator to a content entrepreneur. So that's the latest book. But now, once I get through Content Entrepreneur Expo, the event, I'll be working on my next. And I don't know what it's going to be yet. I mean, it probably will be a sequel to The Will to Die, which is my first novel that did fairly well. But I'll probably do a sequel, or you never know. Like, it's weird. That's the difference between writing nonfiction and fiction. With my nonfiction, I do something called a blog to book strategy, where I write the chapters in blogs or podcasts ongoing. And then after 6 months, because I have that strategy, I have a book. I wrote Epic Content Marketing in 2013 that way, wrote Content Inc. that way, could do the research up front as part of my regular blog posts and newsletters that I had to do. And voila, you have a book. I could not do that with fiction.
No.
I had to spend every day for 4 weeks in the morning just weeping out words. Like, and it was I'm like, I can't do this. This is like, nothing is coming to me, whatever. And it was about the 4-week mark that I started to find a rhythm. And then the story just happens. And I remember one time I wrote something and I came downstairs. Will Pollitt is the main character. And I come downstairs after my writing session and I go talk to my wife and I said, you'll never have any, I mean, I can't tell you what the main character did today. And she's like, what do you mean? You already knew. You're writing this. I'm like, I had no idea it was going to happen. It just came out of the page and there's a whole new thing to the story. And she's just like, you're an idiot. You're a big dork. But that's the way it works. You sort of let the story take care of it and the characters sort of reveal themselves. And that's the exciting part about writing fiction, is you just never know. So I might say to you, oh, I'm going to write another version of The Will to Die or whatever it is. But once I get started into it, it could be something else.
I feel like writing nonfiction is challenging enough when I think about fiction. And I love listening to fiction authors because they talk a lot about character development and how they kind of say what you did, which is once you develop the character and you know the character, you're surprised at what comes on the page. You have to know the character and what he would or what she or he would or wouldn't do. But then it kind of like takes you through like its own little story. And so a lot of fiction writers talk about how they don't know necessarily, they know the ending, they know the beginning, but they definitely don't know all the pieces in the middle, which I think is interesting. I also think it's fun how you write the kind of blog to book strategy. When I wrote my book, it was cool because I was doing a lot of little segments in Clubhouse. Remember that app that was
Oh, sure.
big
Yeah, of
for a
course.
sec? And I was doing this segment in this big community, and I was like one of the moderators. And every week I had a 30-minute segment, which forced me to create content every week. And so I was basically just testing the ideas. And there were certain things that I would talk about that people really resonated with. And I thought, oh, that's in the book. I have to put that in the book. And so when writing nonfiction, I love that strategy of blog posts or putting it out on Twitter or LinkedIn or just testing things to see what works, which is kind of what you're helping people do now. I want to get into a content entrepreneur because you've been in this space for such a long time before it was a thing, before influencers were a job, right? Before kids now were saying, I want to grow up and be a YouTube star.
You can say I'm old.
Right.
You just say, Joe, you've been around before the internet. You were doing this. Just say
Listen,
it. You're so old that YouTube wasn't even out and Google wasn't the thing. And yeah, that's okay. That's fine. It's true.
Hey,
it's true.
I was right there with you, Joe. So it's so interesting to me that I remember like people even used to say, I mean, I had a YouTube channel way back when. I did not grow it and build it the way that people are now. So I think what you're doing is really interesting, especially for the kinds of people that you work with. Cause I feel like there's this like Gen Z and TikTok and this like new way of influencer marketing. And I feel like a content entrepreneur feels different. And it also feels like you have a different demographic of professionals that want to actually earn a living with the content that they're making in a way that really leverages their thought leadership. And so I want to dig into your book and then, of course, your event that you started.
Thank you. Yeah. So after 2020, when I started getting back into this, we launched The Tilt as a newsletter for what would be full-time content creators. And we called them content entrepreneurs, people that were taking this thing seriously. I honestly thought, Kate, that we were going to attract the TikTokers, the YouTubers, and we've since pivoted. Most of our audience ends up being second career, like people that have had a career in marketing or business or communications or PR or some business, and then they end up doing their own thing. They create a blog or a newsletter, or they start writing books or whatever, and they want to do this as a full-time business. And I like the use of content entrepreneur versus content creator because hey, my mom is a content creator. She posts on Facebook. Everyone is a content creator and everyone's just throwing around that term. And it's fine. I use content creator as well. It's no problem. But I wanted to say content entrepreneur because that says business first. You are a business with a content-based business, meaning you're building an audience and you're going to monetize that audience. And so I like a little mini media company. So we launched The Tilt with that in mind. And everything we do, like the latest, you talked about the latest book, we created a book called The Content Entrepreneur for that specific thing. So everything we did, we're almost like, I don't want to say we're duplicating the Content Marketing Institute model, but if you look at it from afar, you'd say, oh, the newsletter is the base. You know, you build the base first, you create the newsletter. We have 35,000 subscribers to our newsletter. That newsletter then gives us the opportunity to create an event, Content Entrepreneur Expo, which is now going to, and it's been every May. This is our third year, May 5th to 7th in Cleveland. So we have that event that attracts about 400 of those people to get together and network and learn from each other. And then the book, The Content Entrepreneur, will be, doing a little launch party at CEX around the Content Entrepreneur book. But it's the idea of there's so many of those. You talked about the TikTokers, YouTubers, whatever. What I found and why I got back into this whole thing was nobody has a business model. They're just like, I'm going to put content out. I'm going to build an audience that I have no control of and rent this land on these other social media outlets. And I saw a lot of those people just getting very frustrated. They couldn't monetize the model. They didn't have, outside of whatever sponsors ads they were getting on the platform, they weren't able to support themselves because they didn't think that this is actually a business model. So that's where, In 21 with the tilt, we really were talking about, okay, what's the business model? Okay, what's your differentiation area? Where are you going to build your base? You're not going to do it on every platform. You focus on being great at one or two things and stop like spreading out content and being mediocre everywhere. By the way, that's what every business does. They're like, oh, I have to create content on every channel. No, you don't. You absolutely don't. Only be in the places that you can really serve that audience well and you can see an impact, and just forget the rest. It's okay. You don't have to be on X. You don't have to, you don't, unless it works for you. So those types. And so that's where we're going through. And then you're like, okay, well, once you build that audience, how do you move wherever it's at to something that you control? That's email. We've been preaching about this for 20 years. It still works the best, where you get somebody's opt-in subscription to your newsletter or whatever, and then you have the control to communicate with them on a regular basis, where you don't have to succumb to the algorithms or getting blocked on a platform or whatever, like you do with social media. By the way, I'm not poo-pooing social media. I'm just saying it's not yours. You are releasing that space. If you're using social media, you should get up in the morning, check all your places on social media to see if you still have access, and then say thank you and go about your day. But you should always check in the morning, because you might be blocked. The algorithm might be changed. Google's changing the rules.
Sure.
YouTube's changing. It's always that way. So we have to make sure, okay, let's leverage this publicity that we have through this social media now while we can. And we've got to move that into email and revenue channels that make sense. Things like launching books, creating membership, training, and I'm all for sponsorship as well. But sponsorship is sort of low-hanging fruit. We can do that at the beginning. We could generate some revenue. But long-term, it's hard to sustain a content entrepreneur business with just advertising. So most of our audience leverages revenue channels 5 to 7 different ways. They take donations, they do affiliate marketing, they launch their own products, they do consulting and coaching services. They have a lot of different things that come to the table. And that's, I think, 99% of the time, that's the way that content creators are going to move into content entrepreneurship.
Oh my gosh, that's a whole other episode, Joe. Like, that is a whole...
We can do that.
Because I really hope that people listening get a copy of the book and sign up for the email, because it is an interesting business model. And I think there are a lot of leaders that are running businesses that could add this type of model to their business. And, or to your point earlier, kind of some that I feel like are banging their head and really not sure the direction the business could go, when I think content entrepreneurship could be a really viable solution to kind of change directions and continue to do the work that they really love to do. And so, I believe in content marketing all day. I'm a huge fan and have been in the world and kind of navigating through it as well. So I'm really excited for your new business, because you are really helping so many people get their message out and build a business. And I love the distinction that you're making about content creator versus entrepreneur. Joe, you have, like I said, I think one of your superpowers is really just your vision and how much you care about supporting people in this space of content marketing. And you just keep on creating. Like, before we jumped on and recorded, you were like, what am I doing? I'm supposed to just be hanging out. And you just cannot help yourself from
I have problems.
starting businesses,
I have major issues,
helping people, and in this world of content marketing and supporting entrepreneurs. And it's just so cool. And I just love it. And I love talking to you. What advice would you give to someone who is maybe struggling a little bit in their business? They're not really sure what direction to take. What advice would you give them, being that you've had so many different kind of paths?
As a business person, I mean, the biggest, like for me, as I talked about, you have to build in patience. You can't just be patient. You have to build in patience. So make the decisions so that you can be patient. You might have to cut some expenses in some way, but I think a lot of it has to do with outsourcing enough time as a business owner so that you can focus on what you're great at. If it's 4 or 5 or 6 people doing some of those other things, that's available today, which is great. Setting your appointments, virtual assistant, doing all the things so that you can focus strategically on the business and focus on doing the things that you love in the business. You're not always going to love your business. Although being a content entrepreneur, in my opinion, is the best business on the planet. Like, I think if you could be financially independent, work whenever you want to, do it with, basically a cell phone, which you can with this business, this is fantastic. But I would say a learning would be write down all the things as a business owner that you are really good at or you love to do. Those are the things that you protect and you keep doing. I still enjoy, I love to write. I love to speak. I love to host events. Those things I will keep and I will continue to do until somebody tells me I'm not good enough to do those jobs. Then everything else is all this organization, setting anything detail related, I'm terrible at. Even if I think I'm good at it, I'm bad. I'm not. Or if I love to do it, I'm bad at it. So let's get somebody else to do those things. And it takes a while, but I would imagine that everyone listening to this or watching this understands that there's a few things that they're doing that they shouldn't be doing. Well, stop it. That's not going to help. And it's not going to help you. It's not going to help your anxiety. It's not going to help your relationship with your significant other. None of those things are going to be helped by you doing things you shouldn't be doing. So take the next few months and start to push those things off to somebody else so that you can then think strategically about the business. It's funny, until I got to that September point in 2009 when we had a couple customers that didn't renew, which forced me into the decision of, am I going to go find somewhere to work? Am I going to work for somebody or whatever? If I wouldn't have got to that point where I had to rethink about the business, Content Marketing Institute might have never happened. I got into such a point of failure that I was forced to look at it. Well, let's not go with everybody listening to this. You don't have to get down to the very depths of, I have to leave the business. You can do that right now. You can say, okay, I'm going to make this list. I'm going to strategically start to outsource things from my plate so that I can be successful and focus on the goals that I want to accomplish. And, family, your spirituality, your mental state, those things are really important, and all this other stuff is secondary, but it helps you refocus time back on what is important. So we can all do that. We can do it right now. That would be my advice to anyone listening to this.
Beautiful. All right. Well, we'll have to have you come back on so we can talk all about how people can now become a content entrepreneur, because I know there's people listening thinking, yes, that sounds like what I want to do.
Perfect. I love it.
Joe, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Looking forward to the next episode. Thanks, Kate.
And there you have it. I could have talked to Joe all day because I believe what I said about him. I think he has such an interesting body of work. He has done so many different things. And as entrepreneurs, as a business owner, or as a leader that is leading a team and growing a department or whatever it is that you're doing, it's really important for us to have great conversations with people and take a look at where you are and where you want to go, where you want to be. We have to allow ourselves to think about possibilities that we might not be looking at. We might not put a little bit of time and attention into, maybe it is time to shift our business model or get into a different industry or reach out to someone in a completely different industry because there might be a really great market for us there. And I love the idea too of reaching out to our customers. Who are your best customers? When's the last time you had a conversation with them? When was the last time that you asked them, what is it about the work that you do with them that they really appreciate and what might be missing? Those are some really great questions that would be worth considering and worth having a conversation around, especially those people that they really enjoy doing business with you and you can support them in more meaningful ways and continue to work with them. If you are a leader and you're in a position where you're constantly thinking about the business and where it needs to go and what you should be doing, we would love to talk to you about coaching and what it might be like to have a coach. Joe talked in the end, he shared that it's time for everyone to really consider what you want your life to look like, not just your business, but all the different areas of life, your relationships, your spirituality, your health and your fitness, your finances. And that is the work that we do at Floyd. We do that through our Dream Manager life coaching and we do that through our business coaching. And so if it's time for you to invest in a coach to really help you become the best version of yourself, then we would love to have that conversation with you. And you can go to floydcoaching.com and someone from our team will reach out to you to have that conversation. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, lead with culture.